My name is Elena. I'm 34 and I just sat through an engagement party I paid for, only to watch my sister raise her glass and humiliate me in front of our entire family. I smiled. Just a quick, dry curve of the lips that stopped halfway. When I set my glass down, I had already decided I wouldn't be paying another cent for people who never saw me as family. That night, I turned on Do Not Disturb, lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and thought about all the money I'd given, and the times I waited for someone to ask if I'd eaten. No one ever did. The next morning, the messages poured in. My sister wrote, "Don't ruin my wedding dream." My mother said, "You have money, but no one loves you." What they didn't know was that I'd opened an old folder, and inside I found something they never wanted me to see. Warm light lay over the long table like a smear of honey. Crystal glasses kissed a thin ting like someone flicking the last string left in me, the smell of lilies mixed with the dry bite of wine. Lucía stood her ring, throwing a bright slash across her cheek, a silver spoon tapping softly against the rim of her glass. For family, for the future, for love, she said, a smile wide enough to make the whole room feel invited into happiness. Then her chin tilted just a little. Except for Elena, the failure who only has money. The air stalled for half a beat, then laughter rolled in like a wave. My mother laughed first, laying a hand on my father's, and shaking her head as if to say, "Isn't she something?" A few relatives followed. Miguel laughed off-key, unsure where the joke was. I laughed too, a reflex short and dry snagging at the corner of my mouth. The cold stem slid in my hand. My heart tapped at my ribs like someone tapping a glass thin and sharp. How can you laugh when your own daughter is being insulted? At work, the hardest question I answer is which flowers won't die under warm lights. At home, the hardest question is how many ways there are to say transfer done and still pretend it's normal. I live alone, 10th floor, a window, looking out over a grid of roofs. Morning doesn't need a lamp. Some nights, only the desk light is on so the room sounds occupied. On the coffee table, an industry magazine lies open. A wedding I produced is on this month's cover. Next to it, my badge, Elena Hernández, creative director, holding the faintest trace of perfume. My phone lights up. Transfer completed premium chairs. I scroll up. Transfer completed paella ingredients. Transfer completed champagne Grand Reserve. In the tiny memo line, Marta. I don't need to guess who sent the list. Once my mother said, the chairs have to be high-backed. It photographs classier. Another time, they must be lilies. The scent is worth it. I wired the money. The thanks slid past like a shrug. You're so capable. Her favourite line arrives on cue like cutlery meeting porcelain. You have money, but you're still alone. There's a timeline board in my office. Blue and red slashes run through the month. An engagement dinner. A 40th anniversary party. A quinceañera. Sticky notes marked final invoice paid crowd the edges. When my fingers touch the board, I know which vendor will call at which hour. Which flower to swap when the heat rises. How many microphones a 6-person stage needs. I know everything in my work, but one thing at home, how to be respected. I paid Lucía's college tuition. She had a perfectly good scholarship at a public university, but she wanted the one that sounded elegant. I put down the deposit on a car so she could be independent. I signed off on a hospital bill long enough to tire my wrist on a rainy night when the billing clerk walked straight to me instead of to my mother. I spent an entire graduation day behind the camera bouquet and dress both on my tab. At the end, they thanked the person who took the photos. In our family chat, they call me Banco. It started as a joke. Then, it became muscle memory. When my phone buzzes, I can measure the distance between "Hey, Elena" and the number at the end. Short enough that I don't have to read to know. My apartment is neat, almost cool. A table for 4 always has 3 empty chairs. A framed family photo sits half buried in a stack of books, the glass wearing a soft film of dust. I can't pack it away and I won't hang it. It stands there like a small stone in a shoe, not painful enough to stop you, sharp enough to remind you you're walking with one leg stiffer than the other. I learned how to make things beautiful for other people. How to pleat napkins like fans, choose palettes that don't wash anyone out under a lens set sound, so love can be spoken and heard by the entire room. I do it every week. I've done it for my family for years, like someone who builds the stage and then sits in the last row with her phone checking the lights. The phone buzzes again. Transfer completed, deposit venue hold. Memo Lucía. I picture her face choosing a venue the look of someone who owns the sky. She has a talent for making people believe her wanting something is only natural. I used to believe it too. Long ago, I taught myself that hearing and agreeing are not the same thing. I remember a dinner years back. My father said, "You're the eldest. You take care of it." My mother sighed. "If you're in a position to help a little so we don't give people anything to talk about." I answered, "Yes." No one asked how much was enough. Another time, a bank transfer hung up for 3 days. My mother called exactly 3 times in one afternoon, each time in the same calm voice. "Can you check that people are waiting?" I apologised like I'd broken something antique. I open a cabinet, pour water, lean on the stone counter. The city's night hums into a narrow strip beyond the window. I think of my mother's line. "You have money, but you're still alone, the way people salt the rim of a glass, an old habit." At work I sign. At home I am a wallet. I glance at the hallway mirror I pass for politeness more than need. I send a short email to a venue manager, confirmed, thank you. Then I darken the screen and pick up my keys. There are 3 ways to get to my parents' house. Each route has a nasty bend. I choose the one with the fewest lights. The party is still bright when I step back into the dining room. The lighting looks harsher now, as if someone turned it up. My mother signals the server to pour more of the expensive champagne. He looks to me before lifting the bottle. Habit. Anyone who meets my eyes knows who pays. My mother catches my look, one corner of her mouth lifting. "You miss a beat, and they forget to pour that one," she says lightly, just loud enough for the table to hear. Then, the line that arrives like dinner time. "You have money, but you're still alone." Soft laughter. The kind that skims. If loneliness is the price of being respected, I'll settle the bill tonight. I sit at the corner of the table where I can see every face without lifting my chin too high. The paella is rich. The lilies nearly smother the wine. Lucía passes me twice, touching my shoulder, each time in that way people do when they're busy being the centre of the room. My father retells an old story from his years working away from home. People laugh on the marks they've memorised. My mother praises the food, the lights, the music. Miguel sits straight hands placed just so. Any time the wedding comes up, the relatives' eyes switch on like someone hit a button. Lucía stands again, the spoon taps glass once more. "Let me make one more toast," she says, summer in her voice. I study her face, no malice, only the certainty of someone who has never been told no. She does the full loop family love future, then cuts her eyes at me. The rings glare, landing square. I set my glass down and stand. I hear chairs murmur against wood, someone clear a throat. No one speaks. The air goes still like a stage, a breath before a poem. I'd like to raise a glass. I say my voice so ordinary, I surprise myself. To family. I pause exactly half a beat. And to the failure who is done paying for your wedding. No laughter. Someone coughs. I see my mother's mouth drop at the corners. My father's eyes open wider than usual. Lucía stands there, lips parted, like she's never heard a sentence with the word no anchored in the right place. "Elena, what are you saying?" My mother asks the question, sliding under a layer of dignity like a knife under paper. I roll the stem in my hand, set the glass down and lift my head. I'm saying I won't pay anymore. From chairs to flowers to champagne to the ring on your finger, I've paid what I consider enough. The rest, you can handle. Miguel looks at Lucía, then at his mother across the table. I catch that look, the one that weighs love against cost. I don't blame him. Everyone has their own spreadsheet. My father frowns. If there's private business, take it to the kitchen. We have guests. I'm being clear, I say. I'm very late to being clear. In my head, memo lines run like subtitles: Lucía, tuition, deposit, Lucia's car, meds, dad, high back chairs, mom. The little letters stack into a long wall. Each brick has a chip in it with my name. Elena, don't make a scene, Lucía says, still trying. Soft? I was just joking. You know me, whose money are you joking with? I ask, without raising my voice. You joke at a party where the person paying is sitting here and everyone laughs. Mum laughs first. Dad looks away. It's fine. The jokes are over for tonight. Cutlery lands on plates in a chorus soft metal like consensus. My mother opens her mouth, but I've already pushed my chair back. I slip past the roll of seats, past perfume and lilies. The family photo wall in the hall looks at me with faces frozen in happier weather. I pause 1 second at the door. No one calls after me. The air outside is cooler by several degrees. Night wind touches my face like a rinsing hand. I take the steps without turning. In the yard, the laughter is still there, smaller now, like a song cut off by a closing door. I hit the fob. For the first time in years, I don't notice how many red lights it takes to get home. No one comes after me. I go home, close the door, and the phone starts buzzing before my shoes are off. I do not turn on the lights. The lock screen fills with previews. Family chat, Mum, Dad, Lucía, a few others. I put the phone on the counter and it buzzes again. I unlock it. Mum writes that I shamed the family in front of important people. She says people are already talking. She says her head hurts and asks if I want her to end up at the hospital because of me. Then she sends the line I know by heart. You have money, but you are alone. People respect you because you are our daughter. Do not forget, Dad calls. I let it ring out. He texts that I must come back now, that I am lowering the family, that I need to know my place. He adds that I should be at the house in the morning or stop calling myself his daughter. Lucía sends a long message. She says she was joking and everyone knew. She says I ruined the night and ruined the way his family sees her. Then she says I am jealous because she has love and I have only work. Then she begs me not to remove the venue deposit and says she will pay me back when she can. I put the phone down. I do not reply. A cousin writes that I should not make my mother sad. An uncle says to keep things private so the clan is not mocked. Laura writes with a soft tone and asks if I am okay and says everyone is asking and that I should send her a clear note so she can calm them. She says, let family handle family. I start to type, I need space. I erase it. I will not feed anyone a line they can twist. I drink some water and breathe until the tightness in my chest eases a little. I scroll the thread without opening each bubble. I see my own pattern of the past. I call back, I explain. I pay a little more. I fix the mood for them. I can feel that urge like a hand on my shoulder. I move my hand away from the call button. Lucía texts again. If you love me, you will not ruin my wedding. The deposit is set. Names are invited. Face has to be saved. Prove you are powerful some other time. Dad texts again. Morning, house, or else. I feel heat rise in my face, then a clear thought under it. This shame is not mine. I go to the cabinet and take out a small notebook. Paper, not a screen. I sit at the table and open to a blank page. I print in the centre start log. Under that, I draw 4 simple columns. Date, recipient, purpose, notes. On the next line, I write messages and calls. I list the phrases I just saw. Family is for sacrifice. You made your mother sick. Come home now. Do not expose the family. If you love me, you will not ruin my wedding. Know your place. I mark a small tag next to each one in my own code. Guilt, threat, shame, manipulation. On paper, it looks plain and real. The phone buzzes on the counter. I leave it there. I rinse the glass and set it to dry. I look at the notebook again and write what I will do tomorrow. Bank statements, old emails, export the chat, copies of any contracts I sent. If I need printouts, I will ask my assistant. I will do this step by step. No more midnight calls and no more quick transfers just to calm the room. I open the family chat one more time. New lines keep coming. Mum says people are watching weddings online while our family is losing face before we even begin. She asks if I will be happy when my sister loses her wedding. It is not a real question. It is pressure. I open settings. I find Do Not Disturb. I set it for a full day and tap on. The phone goes quiet. I set it face down. I walk the room and touch the chair back and the table edge and the dusty frame and then pull the curtain a little. Outside, the city keeps moving. It helps to remember there is a larger world than one chat thread. I sit again and feel my shoulders drop. I write one more line in the notebook. Tomorrow, I start with the bank. Then I add 3 simple rules. I will not explain by text. I will not call back at night. I will not apologise for a boundary that should have existed years ago. The room is quiet. My pulse is steady. I am not trying to be brave. I am trying to be clear. I keep the notebook open where I can see it. I turn off the kitchen light and leave the desk lamp on. I look at the phone. It stays dark. I let that be enough for tonight. Tomorrow I start logging. I leave the phone face down and open the notebook. DND is on. The phone stays dark. The room is quiet. I keep the notebook within reach and sit until my breathing is steady. I name what I feel to keep it clear. I feel tired. I feel ashamed in a way that does not belong to me. Under that, I feel a firm line of resolve. I think about why I have said yes so many times. I wanted love and peace. I traded money for a quiet room. I took the fastest way to end a fight and hoped the next transfer would be the last. It never was. 3 short memories rise. A school ceremony where I brought home an award and Mum set it on the counter with a quick, good job and went back to her list for a party. A family dinner served while my chair was still empty because I was 5 minutes late from a client call and the plates were already half finished. A night in the emergency room when the clerk asked, "Who is Elena?" and I paid, and later the bill sat on my table at home like a weight I had agreed to carry. None of this is a crime. It is a pattern. I soothe problems with money and with silence. I call that strength because I can carry a lot. That story is over. I drink a glass of water. I look around my apartment. It is neat and a little empty. I turn the family photo to face the wall for tonight. I want the room to match my choice. I clear a small space by the window and put the notebook and a pen there. I add 1 folder and write a simple label on it, Records. I sit and write a short checklist. Tomorrow, pull bank statements. Search old emails for keywords like deposit invoice, hospital car and venue, and flag anything tied to my parents or Lucía. Export the family chat and save it. Then, get prints and ask 1 neutral voice in the family to listen. I start to add another line that says, "Explain yourself." I cross it out. That is not a task. That is a trap. I read the phrases that hit me tonight and copy them into the notebook. Family is for sacrifice. You made your mother sick. Come home now. Do not expose the family. If you love me, you will not ruin my wedding. Know your place. Next to each, I write a small tag in plain words. Guilt, threat, shame, manipulation. On the page, they look simple and real. I see my part too. I trained them to come to me first by always paying first and asking later or never. I answered late-night calls because it was easier to lose sleep than to stand in conflict. That ends now. I do not need another speech. I already said no at the table and I turned on D&D. What I need is to make the facts visible. I add one more line to the notebook. Love and duty without respect are a drain, not a bond. I underline respect once. I pack a small bag for morning. Laptop charger, a flash drive, the notebook a snack. I place it by the door. I think of who can be neutral. Teresa comes to mind. She waits for facts and speaks after she listens. I will call her after I have documents in hand. I do not want to feed gossip. I want a clear path. I wash my face, brush my teeth, and sit again. The checklist is not long. It is enough. I am not trying to win or punish. I am trying to be clear and not ignore myself. The room feels honest. I turn off the lamp and leave a small light in the hall. The phone stays dark and I let it. I lie down. I sleep. In the morning, I will begin. Morning comes and do not disturb stays on. I leave the phone face down, sit at the small table by the window, open the laptop and start where the note says to start. I pull 6 months of bank statements, skim for the obvious lines and see the pattern I already know. Transfers to my parents, payments that match flowers and venue hold, a wire to a hospital account, a dealer payment from months ago for a car. I write the totals in the notebook and move on. I search email for deposit, invoice, hospital, car and venue. I flag the useful hits, file them in records, and back them up. Attachments and trails are routine. I am not rushing. Facts first, feelings later. I widen the search by year and try the word inheritance. Nothing. I type my grandmother's name and the town. A few results appear in my archive. They sit inside an old family chain where I was copied once for a minor update. The subject line reads, Estate Documents for Isabel. I open the thread. It shows my mother, my father, and a lawyer. The dates fall in a short window after the funeral. There are attachments. I open the first scan. It is a letter from my grandmother. The language is plain. She lists a small savings account and a tiny property in a nearby town and says she wants them for me to use for my education or to start my life. She uses my full name and signs. I read her name once, then go on. The next file is a deed of sale for the tiny property. The buyer is a stranger. The seller is my parents acting for the estate. The date is only weeks later. An email under it has my mother telling the lawyer that debts are urgent, that I am too young to handle property, and that keeping me out will avoid stress. The lawyer asks for an account to receive funds. My father replies with a number that is not mine. The memo says family debts. Another attachment is a wire confirmation that matches that account. There is no follow-up showing any transfer to me. A later line says, we will tell Elena when the time is right. Another says, do not involve her as she is focused on work. The last note is a short thank you from my mother. No plan to inform me. I set my hands flat on the table until they stop shaking. The window light does not change. The room has not changed. I have. I save each file with clear names that include dates and put them in a new folder called Inheritance inside Records. I export the whole thread and save it. I back everything up to a flash drive. I check my statements from that year and an old savings account. There is no incoming transfer. I write 2 lines in the notebook. Grandmother left assets to me. Parents sold and kept the funds. I add a 3rd line. The documents are clear. I take screenshots of the key stretches where my name and the instructions appear, paste them into a simple document with page numbers, and add a 1-line note under each image that says what the page shows. At the top, I write a short summary in 4 points. Intent of grandmother, sale by parents, proceeds to their account, no transfer to me. I open a new email to Anna Robles. The subject is request for consultation. I keep the body brief and direct. I say who I am, that I need help with a possible claim about a small inheritance that did not reach me, and with a pattern of financial abuse inside my family. I attach the summary and say I have all original emails and scans ready. I ask for the earliest time this week. I do not narrate my pain, and I do not apologise for asking. I send it. I write a short plan under the word inheritance in my notebook. Wait for the lawyer. Do not confront by phone. Call Teresa after I have a meeting time, not before. I sit still and think about my grandmother, about the way she saved small things and told the truth without a show. I do not need a speech from her to know what she would want. Keep records. Protect yourself. Ask for help when needed. I export the family chat as planned, save the file in records and on the flash drive, and send a note to my assistant asking for printouts filed under records for pickup after lunch. No extra details. I close the banking tab and lock the laptop screen. I pour a glass of water and finish it. I put the flash drive and the notebook in my bag, slide a pen into the spiral, and zip the bag shut. I look at the phone. Do not disturb is still on. I keep it that way. I draft a simple text to Teresa that says, I would like to meet this week, that I will bring documents and that I value her calm view. I save it to drafts. I want the lawyer's time first. I check that every file I touched sits in both places on the laptop and on the drive. It does. I add one final line to the notebook in plain words. I will not confront them by phone. I will bring this to a table that has rules. I will not confront them by phone. I will bring this to a table that has rules. Anna replies with a morning slot, so I keep do not disturb. On take the bag with the flash drive and the printed summary and go to her office. Her assistant shows me in. I set the folder on the desk and say I brought records. Anna nods, reads the 4-point summary scans, the screenshots with dates and the wire confirmation, and asks 3 short questions in a calm voice. The funeral date. Who owned the small property before the sale? Whether the account on the wire matches any account of mine. I answer and point to the year in my bank statements that would show any incoming funds. It shows none. Anna makes a few notes and gives a clear bottom line. My grandmother's intent is explicit in her letter. The sale by my parents is documented. The proceeds went to an account that is not mine. That is enough to open a claim for the inheritance. The other transfers from me to them are a separate track and may support an unjust enrichment claim if we can show pressure rather than gifts, but we will not mix tracks. One thing at a time. Inheritance first. She asks how I want to proceed. I say I want a formal record and a real chance to settle, not a public fight. She outlines the plan. Step 1. A notice letter that states the facts and cites the documents, demands a full accounting of the inheritance assets, the sale and the funds received, and asks for repayment or a concrete plan by a set date. It also directs all future contact to writing and notes that I will not discuss the matter by phone. Step 2, a short and separate boundaries letter that says I will not fund the wedding or any other expenses, and that any future support would require written requests and agreements. I agree. She asks if there is a neutral person in the family. I say Teresa. She is fair and careful with words. Anna says a neutral witness at a family meeting can keep order and later confirm what was said. She draws 2 files on her pad, inheritance and support. For inheritance, she lists the letter from my grandmother, the deed of sale. The wire confirmation, the emails with dates and names, and my bank record showing no incoming funds, plus the short summary. For support, she lists the large transfers with memos tied to family costs. Keep the notebook log and backups, while the letters are pending, answer nothing outside written channels. She covers the risk in one sentence. They will try to pull me back into the old pattern. My job is to hold the line. Anna opens a template and drafts the notice letter. She keeps it plain. Numbered facts. A date for an accounting and repayment, or a proposal. All contact in writing. Firm, not loud. She prints a draft and hands it to me. We will send by certified mail and email, and it will help if I also hand a copy to them at a meeting with a witness. I say Teresa could host a short meal if she agrees. Anna gives me a simple script for that room. 3 lines only. I have documents. I want an accounting and repayment of the inheritance. I will not fund the wedding. Then stop. If voices rise, pause and repeat the 3 lines. She asks me to say them once. I do. My voice stays low and clear. She asks if I feel safe going to a meeting. I say yes if Teresa is there, if the meeting has a set start and end, and if I can leave at any time. She says those are the rules then. I sign the engagement letter. She keeps a copy of my summary. I take the originals. She will finalise the notice letter today and email me the final to sign. She asks me to assemble the support file next, but not to send anything about it yet. 1 track at a time. Before I leave, she asks if I need anything else. I say no and thank her for being direct. She thanks me for bringing records. In the hall, I check my phone only long enough to see her email confirmation arrive. Then I put it away with Do Not Disturb still on. I draft a text to Teresa that says I would like to meet at her house this week, that I will bring documents, and that I need her there as a neutral witness. I do not send it yet. I want the meeting time from Anna first. I put the draft letter in my bag and walk outside. The next step is a table with witnesses. Teresa agrees to host at 6. My parents bring Lucía Miguel and his mother, Beatriz. Anna has already sent the notice by certified mail and email, and she told me to hand a hard copy tonight, so receipt is clear even if the postal delivery is still in transit. I keep Do Not Disturb on and carry the folder marked inheritance and a copy of the boundaries letter. Teresa opens the door and says one rule before we start. Let her finish, then you speak. The dining room's bright. Water and plain glasses sit in the centre. Relatives fill both sides of the table. I set the folder down and say 1 line. I have documents. My mother says this is a misunderstanding we can fix at home, and asks if I want to shame them again. My father says money talk does not belong at a table and tells me to bring complaints in private. Lucía asks if I came to ruin what is left of her wedding. Miguel looks down. Beatriz watches in silence. I do not answer any of them. I say my first line, I have documents. I lay out 3 sets and mark the key places. First, my grandmother's letter naming me and saying the small savings account and the small property are for my education or a start in life. Second, the deed of sale with the date weeks after the funeral and the sellers listed as my parents acting for the estate. Third, the wire confirmation from the lawyer showing funds sent to an account that is not mine. I add the email thread and mark 2 lines. We will tell Elena later when the time is right. Do not involve her as she is focused on work. I place my bank statement for that year with a clear highlight where any transfer would appear. It does not. Teresa leans in and reads the key lines, aloud so there is no debate about what the pages say. My mother reaches toward the paper and pulls back. She says there were debts, that I was young and busy, and that they meant to tell me later. My father says I never asked, and that he handled adult matters. An aunt murmurs that small properties are a burden anyway. I keep my hands flat and my voice even. I say my second line. I want an accounting and repayment of the inheritance. I want a full record of what was sold, what was received, and where the money went, with a response within 14 days as stated in the notice. My mother starts to speak. Teresa lifts a hand and says, "We will hear her after I finish." She looks at my parents and adds one sentence in a steady voice. I remember Isabel telling me she wanted Elena to have a start of her own, and here she put it in writing. My father says, "Paper does not show the whole story." Teresa nods and says, "Paper shows enough to begin repair." I take out the notice letter that Anna drafted. I place a copy in front of my mother and one in front of my father. I do not restate it. It lists the facts, asks for an accounting and repayment, or a plan by the deadline, and directs all contact to writing. Then I say my third line. I will not fund the wedding. Lucía makes a small sound and says I am cruel, that her joke was small, that a wedding is once in a lifetime, that I have more than enough. Miguel asks quietly if the venue deposit is truly off the table. I say yes. Any future support would require a written request and a clear agreement, and I will not pay for a wedding. Beatrice clears her throat and says her family values order and will not take part in events with public conflict, then thanks Teresa for keeping order in this room. My mother turns to her and says, "We will handle our affairs and that this is private." Teresa answers that we keep it private by keeping it simple and written. She asks everyone to let me finish. I take out the one-page boundaries letter. I read only the main lines. I will not pay for the wedding or any other family expense. Any request for support must be in writing and may be refused. All contact about money must be in writing. I hand a copy to my mother, to my father, and to Lucía. I add one more sentence. This is not a punishment. It is a boundary. My father says no daughter tells her parents to put things in writing and that this is not a business. I say it is my money and my safety. He says he will not sign anything. I say he does not need to sign. He needs to read and respond by the date in the letter. If there is no response, I proceed with the lawyer. My mother says this will break the family and that I am making her sick. Teresa sets a glass of water in front of her and asks her to drink. Teresa turns to me. Anything else? I say one final point. Calls will go unanswered. I will read and keep written messages. I look around the table. Faces drop. An aunt wipes her eye. An uncle shakes his head and stays quiet. Miguel says he is sorry for the timing and needs to think. Beatrice nods once and says, "That is wise." Lucía begins to cry in the old way that used to make me give in, and whispers if I will keep the dress deposit at least. I say no. I take a highlighter, circle the deadline date on both letters, and slide them to my parents. I stand. My mother asks where I am going and says we need to talk more. My father tells me to sit. I say no. Everything else must be in writing. Teresa stands too and says the meeting is over and we will wait for the accounting. She thanks everyone for coming and asks them to leave the copies on the table. Someone starts to speak and Teresa shakes her head. Not now. I lift my bag and thank Teresa for the room and for her voice. I leave the letters on the table with the deadline circled. No one follows me. I walk home from Teresa's with the letters in my bag and no one behind me. Do not disturb stays on. The hall is cool, the apartment neat, the table clear except for the notebook and the folder marked records. I set the bag down and drink water. I do not check the family chat. I open my laptop only to see the confirmation from Anna that the notice went out. I close it and sleep. Morning is quiet. The phone stays still on the counter. I make eggs and toast, answer 2 client emails, and confirm a delivery time for a weekend event. I take a short walk and come back to my desk. There is room in my head I have not felt in a long time. I look at the notebook page that says, deadlines, and underline the word once. By noon, the silence feels deliberate. No calls, no long messages, no scenes. In the afternoon, Anna's office sends a short line that the certified mail is in transit, and the email delivery shows red receipts on 2 addresses. I file that note and get back to work. A new message arrives from Lucía. It is one line. I am sorry I said too much. You must be tired. Rest. There is no ask in it. I let it sit. I do not reply. I slice an apple and eat it, standing at the counter, and feel the simple relief of doing a normal thing. Another message arrives from Beatrice. It is polite and brief. We will follow written exchanges. I reply with one line. Thank you. A little before dusk, I dust the shelf and pause at the family photo that still faces the wall. I leave it that way. I do not need to look at it to know what it holds. I check the records folder and see the files where I left them. I write a short note to myself. Keep the line. Eat, work, sleep. In the evening, I cook something easy and wash the pan as soon as I am done. The routine calms me. I sit with tea and read a few pages of a book that has waited on my table for months. The room feels ordinary in a good way. Near 9, a message comes from Laura. It is warm and careful. Are you okay? I am here if you need someone to listen. Do you want me to help explain the timeline to people so they stop asking? What exactly is the response window? I watch the screen for a few seconds. I think about not answering at all. Then I choose one simple sentence that is public information. The letter sets 14 days. Please read it carefully. I send just that. No files, no comments. She replies with a heart and a thank you and says she will keep people calm. I put the phone down and turn back to my tea. The night passes in small, clean pieces. I answer a late client email about lighting and copy my assistant so the setup is clear. I put my clothes for tomorrow on a chair. I check the list for the morning and write bank to do print pickup call. Teresa only after I have the lawyer's time. I turn the lights off one by one and leave the small hall lamp on. The phone stays quiet and I let it be. In bed, I feel the old pull to explain myself for a moment. It fades when I say the 3 lines in my head and stop. I start to drift. Just before sleep, a preview flashes and vanishes on the screen. A cousin I have not heard from in a year asks a vague question about how long a person should have to respond in a family matter. The words 14 days sit in the middle of it, and then the phone goes still again. I stare at the dark ceiling and tell myself it could be nothing. I turn over and breathe. The room holds. I sleep without the phone under my pillow. By morning, the phrase 14 days sits in 3 chats, one marked forwarded by the app. Do not disturb stays on while I check the phone at the table. The forwarded line is my neutral sentence from last night. The letter sets 14 days. Please read it carefully. Under it, Laura adds that I am threatening the family with court and trying to scare people into silence. In another thread, she tells 2 aunts that I plan to sue everyone and want the wedding cancelled. I take clean screenshots with names and times and save them. I do not reply. In the family chat, my mother writes that I have turned cold and made a private matter public. My father says I am misled by outsiders and that a good daughter meets her parents face to face. A cousin asks why there is a deadline at all. Across the chat windows, the same words repeat. 14 days. A vendor emails me that a woman called last night to raise questions about my character. The vendor does not share the words used. She says she thought I should know. I thank her and file the email. I send Anna a bundle by email with the screenshots and the vendor note and write one line. The deadline is now being circulated with my name and someone called a vendor. Anna replies fast by email. She says this is a common move and that I did the right thing by not engaging. Based on the screenshots and the caller info she will issue, cease and desist letters to the numbers and addresses involved. The letters will demand they stop sharing my messages, stop contacting my clients, and preserve all records. She adds that the notice letter already sets the rules and the clock. Any so-called replies that come by chat will be answered with a short pointer back to the requirements for a written accounting and a repayment plan by the date. I put the phone down and keep working. A message arrives from Beatrice signed by her and Miguel. They will pause all wedding plans until the inheritance matter is resolved in writing. Any future planning would require clear agreements from both sides. I send a brief thank you and leave it there. Laura writes to me in a private thread. She says she was only trying to calm people. She asks me to share the summary so she can explain for me. She says that uncles listen to her. I answer one sentence. Do not share my messages. Do not contact my vendors. All contact goes through Anna Robles in writing. She sends more lines in quick taps saying I am shutting her out and that I need her. I do not answer. I block the thread and forward the last set to Anna and save the export. Anna confirms the cease and desist letters have gone out and copies me. The language is plain and firm. Then the day goes on and I keep my routine. I eat and I work and I file what needs to be filed. In the afternoon, Anna emails an update. Certified mail shows a delivery attempt at my parents' address, and read receipts show the notice was opened yesterday. She includes a short email from my parents to her office that calls this a misunderstanding and asks to discuss by phone. Anna replies to them with 2 lines that she copies to me. The notice requires a written accounting and a repayment plan by the date set. All contact must be in writing. Reading those 2 lines, I feel my chest loosen. I am not standing here alone. A new number texts me with a screenshot of Laura's forward and asks if I want to destroy the family name. I do not respond. I save the image and the number. I approve a small change to a seating plan for the weekend and confirm print pickup for the records files and ask my assistant to add a tab for cease and desist copies. Another message from Miguel arrives. He says he and his mother will not take sides and will not host any joint event until the letters are answered. I reply with, I understand. Laura appears again from a different number. She says she never meant harm and asks if we can meet for coffee to talk like before. I feel the old pull to explain. I do not. I write one repeat of the boundary. Do not contact me about this again. All contact is in writing through Anna Robles. I block that number too. Near night, Anna emails another short note. 1 cease and desist shows delivered, and 2 show opened. She attaches the first response from my parents. It denies wrongdoing and says they acted for the best interest of the family. It offers no accounting and no plan. Under it, she writes one sentence. Denials do not change the record. We hold the date. She attaches a simple instruction form. If the deadline passes with no accounting or plan, she will file the claim. I read it once. It is short. I sign and send the scan back. I close the laptop. The room is quiet. I tell myself one thing. I do not need to explain. I need to follow the steps. I set the phone down and let the screen stay dark. I breathe and count slowly until my shoulders drop. I have done what I can for today. I will do the next piece when the day comes. I sign the instruction to proceed if the deadline passes. Whatever happens next will be on paper. In the morning, my inbox proves it. A short note from Anna says the deadline passed with no accounting and she is filed as instructed. A notice from the venue says the contract is cancelled for non-payment and the deposit is forfeited. A delivery report from the post office confirms the certified letters are in hand. I open each message, save the files into records and breathe. The noise is somewhere else now. The phone is still on Do Not Disturb. I leave it that way. The next emails arrive in a slow line. The band sends an invoice for a late cancellation fee at 30%. The dress shop confirms the deposit is not refundable. Beatrice writes a formal message copied to Miguel. We confirm the wedding is cancelled. Thank you for sending written notices. Miguel adds one line of his own. We will step back. I read the words twice and feel an odd mix of sadness and relief. The damage is real, and the room is finally quiet. A cousin pings me with a tip I did not ask for. Your parents are selling things, the car, some pieces in the living room. I heard them ask a neighbour. A few minutes later, my father emails Anna with a short offer to pay little by little without a ledger. Anna replies to him and copies me. We will consider only after a full accounting of the inheritance assets and the funds received. Please provide documents. I save that thread and close the tab. My map of the family shifts by inches. An aunt asks me not to make this bigger than it is. I answer with one sentence and attach the notice again. Please, read. Another relative who likes to keep clean hands does not write to me at all. But I see the read receipt on the notice. Teresa texts a plain line. I am ready to testify when needed. Work holds steady. A weekend client writes to say the lighting was perfect and asks to book another date. The vendor who warned me earlier sends a second email. We stand with written process. There is a comfort in that phrase. Written process. It fits the day. Anna sends one more update after lunch. Case number assigned. Next steps listed below. Bring bank statements, the email thread, and the wire confirmation to our next meeting. Keep a log of any new contact. I add the number to the top of a new tab in Records and give the tab a simple name, Case and Deadlines. I take a photo of the folder layout on my desk so I will remember how I set things up when the days get busy again. I mute the family chat for a year. The screen shows the small icon and then goes still. Lucía sends one line that afternoon. It is over. There is no blame inside it, no ask. I write a line in my notebook to match her words. The wedding ends. The hiding ends. I turn to the practical list, copy the invoices from the venue band and dress into a folder called Financial Fallout. If there is a chance to negotiate later, I will have a clean record of what it cost to set a boundary. I check the pantry and decide to cook with what I have. Eggs, greens, bread. I wash the pan as soon as I eat and put it back in its place. Small order helps. When I sit down again, the apartment feels honest. Not prettier, just true to my life as it is. I open the notebook to the page that used to say Boundaries and write a new header identity. Under it, I print a single line. I am not a victim. I am a survivor. I do not add a speech. I look at the words until my breath slows and they feel like mine. Then I turn the family photo frame back toward the room. I do not hang it up. I do not hide it. It can sit there and be a picture, nothing more. A final email lands close to evening from Anna with the court portal receipt attached. Case received. She closes with the same reminder as before. Keep communication in writing. Do not engage outside the channel. I reply with 2 words, understood and thanks. I shut the laptop, rinse my cup, and let my shoulders drop. The mess is not gone, but it is contained. Paper will carry it forward. Tonight I will rest, and in the morning I will answer only what belongs to me. 2 client emails, a calendar, invite from Anna, a receipt from the court portal that I already filed last night. I do not open the family chat. Do not disturb comes off and the phone stays quiet. I write one line at the top of my notebook page and circle it once. Answer only what is mine. The apartment feels steady. Light through the window, a clean table, the folder marked records stacked with the other files. I take the family photo from the shelf and set it on the table face up this time. It is just a picture of people in good clothes under a soft lamp. It can stay that way. I pull a blank sheet from the drawer and write, "Dear Emily." The name looks strange in my handwriting. It belongs to the version of me who bought peace with transfers and filled quiet rooms with her own breath. I tell her I am grateful. You carried so much and you thought that was love. I tell her I am sorry. I should have listened to the part of you that did not want to be used. I write down what changed. The wedding is cancelled. Deposits are gone. Some relatives are silent and some are not. My parents are selling things that can be sold. The case has a number. Work stands. Sleep returns. The rules are simple and written. I say out loud that both lists are true. Loss is here. Relief is here. I write the old pattern in short lines and do not dress it up. I paid to make fights stop. I apologised to keep a room from turning on me. I answered at night because it was easier than saying no. Then I write one more line. Not today. I make lunch and wash the plate and sit again. I open a small box and sort the photos that were still in the drawer. I put most of them in a new envelope, write archive on the front and slide the envelope into the bottom of the drawer. I keep one photo out. It is me on a sidewalk a few summers ago, eyes half closed from the sun, hair pulled back, one hand on my hip, because the air was hot and I was laughing at something that is gone now. I put that photo on the shelf. Not above the desk, not in a frame with a ribbon, just there. I go back to the letter. I keep it short. Emily, you did your best. The shame was never yours. You get to go first now. Respect, first then family. I sign my name as I use it. Elena. I slide the page into a plastic sleeve and place it in the folder labelled letters. I take a picture of the page and email it to myself so it sits in the same cloud as the rest of my life. No one else needs it. I clean the desk and leave the notebook open to my list. The window is cracked and the room carries the sound of a bus turning at the corner, a normal sound that does not call for me. I reply to Teresa with 2 words. Thank you. I confirm the meeting time with Anna. I add 3 documents to a checklist for next week. Then I put on music at a low volume and make a small dinner. I eat at the table, not on the couch, and put the plate away when I finish. I wash the cup and dry it with the towel that feels thin from use. On the shelf, a crystal glass catches a bit of light. No ring of sound, no sting under my ribs. I do not need any noise to prove I am here. Later, I sit by the window with my legs folded under me and read the lines I wrote one more time. Answer only what is mine. Keep records. Speak on paper. Rest. The phone lights once with a new email from a client. It is simple and kind. Thank you for your work. We would like to book again. I write back with a time and a smile I can feel in my mouth. When I close the laptop, the room is still. I open the window wider and breathe the warmer air. I do not think about their voices. I think about a delivery guy who will ring tomorrow and the printer pickup and the new seating layout I want to try at the next event. I think about how a boundary feels when it starts to hold. I turn off the music and listen to the air move. I look at the photo of me in sunlight and it looks like a person I recognise. Before bed, I write one last line to Emily at the bottom of the page, not a plea and not a promise, only the truth I can carry forward. I am not the failure. I am the freedom.